Cricket was my first innings, social work my second. Both have been very satisfying, but if anything, the latter, that is, the type of life I am leading now, is much more satisfying. From the first, you have to retire at some time or another, and I retired at the age of 40 after scoring in my last innings a test century. From my social work, I am never going to retire for the simple reason that I am not blocking the way of anyone else, and there's so much to do in humanitarian work that there are not enough people to do it. And so I'm going to carry on and on and on until that great, great umpire declares me out. And for that kind of decision, no appeal from any player is necessary. How did I get into this humanitarian work? I have been born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but my nature is very socialistic. I believe that everyone has a right to live and live decently, and that there should be an even distribution of wealth in the world. Not equal distribution, but equitable and even distribution. Unfortunately, that is not so. I learnt at the age of 10 that there should be something for everyone. And this lesson was taught to me by my own teacher, who once took me to the fair and deliberately stood there lighting his cigarette so that I could see a beggar scraping his vessel to get the last bit of food which had stuck to that vessel. That taught me a lesson which I have not forgotten, and that is, while the rich and those who are the haves squander their money in whatever manner they like, the poor do not have even to eat, sometimes even once. Add to this my own personal philosophy. If all that we are supposed to do in life is to fill our own stomach and the stomachs of our near and dear ones, then we are no better than the worm crawling on the floor. Even that worm eats enough, it maintains its near and dear ones, and yet we who are human beings are supposed to do something better, and that is look after the weaker sections of society. The cricketing philosophy is, while you are batting, the better batsman takes care of the weaker batsman at the other end if your side is to succeed. Well, in life, those who have the haves have to look after the have-nots so that life may be worth living. I used to help people in my younger days by giving them cash. In other words, it was a kind of charity. Then a young and charming lady came into my life, or shall I say, came into my health center at one of my concerns and taught me a different philosophy. She said, Vijay bhai, don't give cash at any time to anyone. By giving cash, you make a beggar all his life. And the idea of humanitarian work is not to add beggars to our community. There are enough of them in our unfortunate country. She taught me different philosophy, and that was give in kind and give where it is absolutely necessary. In other words, make enquiries, full enquiries of the person you are trying to help, and then give him something which will help him to stand on his own legs. I am told there is a Chinese proverb which says, don't give a fish to somebody, but teach him how to fish. In other words, by helping someone, teach him how to help himself. And since then, I have been trying out this philosophy for the last 25 years and more, and it has brought me tremendous internal satisfaction. I have got in my industry 13,000 workers, most of whom I know by personal name. And we have got a health center which caters for their health, the health of their entire families. I know there is the employment state insurance scheme, but quite a few of the workers are not satisfied by the manner in which it functions. And so, in order to see that there is no absenteeism, that people do not keep away from their work for long periods, we follow up each case through the health center and see to it that the worker comes back to work as early as possible in keeping with his physical fitness. I am interested in donation of blood. In our group of concerns, on one occasion, we gave the Tata Blood Bank as many as 666 bottles of blood during the 3 days when the camp was held. 3 or 4 years later, we gave them 777 bottles of blood. Every year we would be able to give them about 200, 250, 300 bottles of blood. And then suddenly it came to a stop because the good doctors from the Tata Blood Bank told me, Mr. Merchant, we don't want blood in a big quantity. We want about 150 bottles of blood every 3 months. And I had to reply very politely to the good doctors that it was not possible for me to have a drive every 3 months. Having one drive in a year was possible, but every 3 months it would just not be possible for us to enthuse our workers to the extent of making them give blood. And at that stage, I am sorry to say, it all stopped because my workers were not prepared, my officers were not able to enthuse the workers every 3 months, and ultimately the workers also lost confidence and faith in the blood donation movement. I am interested in donation of eyes after death. As a matter of fact, over 400 workers from my concern have promised their eyes to the Eye Bank of Maharashtra after death. Mind you, I do not think much of this drive because whenever such campaign takes place, people fill in these forms without thinking twice and without realizing that it is a commitment to society. They probably say to themselves, what does it matter? We are just now 30, 35. The donation will come about after another 45, 40 years. Why bother? And who knows what is going to happen in the meantime? So they just sign those cards. That is why I never present myself at the inauguration of a eyes donation camp because I do not believe in it. Yes, if someone wants to have a drive and enthuse people in the matter of collection of eyes for those who are blind, let them show me their record over a period of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years by the actual collection they have made, not collection they have been promised. Incidentally, being the president of the National Association for the Blind, I can say with a certain amount of authority that not every blind person can benefit by the cornea from the eyes of the dead. It is less than 10%. In other words, if one has got glaucoma or retina detachment, then that person cannot be helped by the fresh cornea from the dead eyes. It is only those whose vision has been affected, impaired, or gone because the cornea has been damaged, them only we can help with the donation of eyes movement. I have up to now been able to collect as many as 31 pair of eyes, and it will surprise those who listen to me to know that I have been instrumental in getting the eyes of probably the youngest donor in the world. Youngest? How young? How many years? Not years. Then months? No, not months. Days? No, not days. Hours. How many hours? 90 minutes. A child which lived for 90 minutes. Her eyes were collected by my health officer, the same health officer who taught me this philosophy of life. It actually happened in Dr. Shirodkar's nursing home at Kambala Hill. Now that building has been transformed into a hospital and it is known as Kambala Hill Hospital. My health officer had been there to see one of our women workers who had delivered a child. And before even she could see the worker herself, she found in one of the rooms an old man with a little child, and he was crying. Not the child, mind you, because the child was dead. She offered condolences to that old man and asked about the child, what had happened. And the old gentleman said, my first grandchild, she died after just living for 90 minutes. She immediately started her sales talk and within 5 minutes was able to convert that old gentleman to donation of eyes. How did she do it? A simple phrase, a simple question. Granddad, would you like one little part of your grandchild to remain alive for many years? The granddad did not understand, and so she had to explain. And when she explained to him the process of donation of eyes after death, the grandfather was immediately responsive. But he said, my child, I am not the father of the child, I am only the grandfather. You will have to obtain permission from the father. So she went into that particular room, and there the father was sitting by the side of the mother of the child, and the mother of the child did not know that her child born 90 minutes earlier was dead. She beckoned to the father to come out, offered condolences, and started the same sales talk. And believe it or not, this young man of about 25 within 5 minutes was converted. But he also repeated the same statement saying, young lady, I am agreeable, but I am not the final authority. The grandfather and the father having said yes, who was the other person who could be the final authority? The mother? She said, no, I am not going to tell the mother. And the father said, no, she does not yet know that our child is dead. Then who? And the man said, the mother's father is also here because it is the first grandchild in the family. So she went to the maternal grandfather and put over her condolences and this lovely project. And believe it or not, even the maternal grandfather agreed. So without losing any time, and before the relations could come and pressurize the father, my health officer took that child in her own car and with the father accompanying to the JJ group of hospitals compound where the Sir J.J. Dagan Eye Bank of Maharashtra is situated. And there a very funny incident happened. The health officer put the child on the table, called the deputy doctor who was present, and said, Doctor, eyes donation. And the doctor, more out of habit than anything else, pulled out from the drawer a big sheet and said, let us fill the form first. And he said, young lady, the name please. She said, doctor, you want the name? She lived only 90 minutes. The doctor, again more out of habit than anything else, said, Miss, age comes afterwards, first the name. Yes, my friends, in our country nothing moves without that form being filled. It does not matter if a patient is dying, suffering, getting worse, but that form has been to be filled first before the wheels of machinery will move. A sad comment indeed on public life, but there it is. And then very quietly, my officer explained to the good doctor, Doctor, we have had no time to name the child. The child lived for 90 minutes only. The doctor understood, expressed his apology for being formal, and as he was about to fill in the form, he turned round again and said, But I must have a name. Father, standing by the side of the dead child, with tears trickling out of his eyes, said, Doctor, please hurry. My relations will be at the hospital by now, and they will create a great commotion if they find that this little child has been taken to the Eye Bank of Maharashtra for the donation of eyes after death. If you like, put down my name. The doctor was in his full senses and said, Sir, thank you very much, but I just can't put down your name. Your name will be put in this register when, 45 years later, your dead body is lying on this table and I take out the eyes from the dead. Only the name of the donor has to be put in, not that of the father, mother, or any other relation. The father understood. So did my young lady, but she was as intelligent as she was charming. She turned round to the father and said, Will you treat me as a sister for today? And the young man said, Young lady, you are more than a sister because you are enabling me to make such a wonderful donation from a body which has no use for it now. And he said, You are my sister, yes, not only for today, but ever afterwards. She turned round to the father and said, Now that I am the sister of the father, I became the aunt, the atya, the faiba, as we call in Gujarati, and so I have the right to name the child. And what name did she give to that little child? Smruti, meaning remembrance. And so, Smruti Maholkar must be perhaps the youngest donor of eyes in the whole world. Yes, that is the way we social workers go about our task, collecting eyes. Another incident of an interesting nature. While my wife was undergoing a major operation in the Dr. Bacha nursing home at Queen's Road, and I was in her room, I suddenly heard a little commotion outside. I went out, made inquiries, and I was told that a very elderly Parsi gentleman, 77 years old, had died on the operation table after a successful operation had been performed. It seems he had suddenly a heart attack and died of the heart stopping, not as a result of the operation on the leg. I gave this information to my health officer who was attending my wife, and she said, Vijay bhai, you stay with your wife here, I'll come back. I knew what she was thinking, so I said, My dear, don't go to the operation room and try to get the eyes of the dead man. Why? She said. I said, Because he is a very elderly person. It is a shock death, a death that was not expected, and his younger brother, who is standing by there, is 75 years old. It is easier to deal with the young in matters of this nature than with the elderly people who have certain fixed ideas of life and such donations. Her sweet voice indicated to me and said, Vijay bhai, at the most they will say no to me. They are not going to kill me, are they? I will go and try. Please look after your wife. And she went. And within 15 minutes she came back saying, Vijay bhai, please ring up the doctor. at the eye bank and get him here as quickly as possible. I said, my dear, how did you manage? She said, simple. The same line of argument which she had employed with that grandfather. Do you want a part of your brother's body to remain alive for many years? Yes. Remember, please, the cornea is always alive, even after the man is dead. It, of course, dies later. And the cornea of any person is good enough, whether that person is 90 minutes old or that person is 90 years old. Why? I go to the extent of saying that even a blind man can donate his eyes. He might have been blinded for other causes, not damage to cornea. If his cornea is alive, even a blind man can enable another blind man to see. That is the secret of eyes donation, corneal grafting, and the wonderful operations which have been performed for many years. And then suddenly it struck me, so I asked my health officer, but my dear, did you inform that we have not a Parsi gentleman as our doctor? Because normally they do not permit the dead body being seen by people of other religions. She said, yes, I did point out that also. And what did he say? He drew me close to him, put his right hand on my left shoulder and said, my dear, are all these doctors round the body Parsis? Are the nurses belonging to that religion? The ward boys? No, my dear. In death we are all the same. We belong to the same religion, humanity. Get your good doctor as quickly as possible. Remove the eyes so that two blind persons may be able to see. Yes, in those years we had to ration the eyes because the demand for eyes from the blind people was greater than the supply, so we could give only one eye to each blind person. Today, after 15, 17, 20 years of very great propaganda for the donation of eyes after death, we are in the happy position of not only supplying fully our own demand with two eyes for each blind person, but we are able to export these eyes or cornea, if you like it, to other countries, particularly to Bangladesh and to Sri Lanka. That is how this whole movement goes on, and I am sure in years to come, many more blind people will benefit thereby. One little point which I nearly forgot. I have 23 blind people working for me. I approached them personally and asked them if they could donate their eyes. And surprisingly, they said, no, sir. I said, any particular reason? You are not able to see at all. You will never be able to see. And they, with one voice, said, sir, don't be too sure. Time is moving. Great research is made in the cause of the blind. And one day, who knows, there might be an instrument or appliance which might enable us to see, provided we have our own eyes in our sockets. Well, I had to admit that they had a point in their argument, and after that, I have never approached a blind person with a request to donate his eyes even while they are alive. I am interested in donation of body after death. That is for dissection, that is for imparting knowledge to medical students in hospitals and medical colleges. A drive is being made for this purpose also because at present 95% of such bodies received by the medical teaching hospitals are those of disabled, diseased, drowned, or affected by other diseases. One out of 100 bodies received by them is that of a healthy person who has died. I believe in it. I believe in it to the extent that I would like to donate my body to a medical teaching hospital after death. But my wife is not agreeable. And our Indian law says that in the matter of any donation after death, it is the successor who must decide whether that donation can be given or not. That is how the law stands at present. I hope during my lifetime it will be changed so that I can also donate my body to a medical teaching hospital after my demise. Now I understand that in the state of Maharashtra, a new law has been enacted to permit even kidneys being taken out of the dead body. Up to now, there were only two things that we could take out from the dead body or donate it either to the eye hospital or to the medical teaching hospital. They were eyes and the entire body. Now, fortunately, in our own state of Maharashtra, this new law has come into being, which enables you and me to donate our kidneys after our demise. Of course, if you are so inclined, you can give one kidney during your lifetime because God has gifted you with two. And whenever it was found that a matching kidney was not available, either from the father or from the mother or from the brother or the sister or from anybody else, then kidneys were imported from America, and these kidneys of dead people were utilized for those who were affected by kidney failure. Now, according to this new law, in our own country, our kidneys will be available after demise, provided, of course, the successor agrees to such donation. Again, it is here that the successor comes into the picture. And I ask myself always a question: how and why should the successor come in? May I know? If it is my kidney, if it is my body, if it is my eyes, why should not I have the right to donate them to anybody? No. But the present Indian law forbids one to do that, and we all have to follow our own law. I have over 120 handicapped workers working in my group of factories, and the handicap extends to all categories, and I will name them: the blind, the deaf mute, the orthopedically handicapped, the paraplegics, the mentally subnormal, the leprosy arrested, the cancer rehabilitated, the epileptics, the spastics, and the cerebral palsy. In other words, if you have counted them with me, exactly 10 categories. I wanted to make a full cricket team of the categories, and I did not have to waste much time looking for the last one. Yes, my friends, the last one was the most simple of them all. All the able bodied people who are too handicapped to appreciate the handicap of others belong to the last category. I am sorry to say, ashamed to say, that unless there is a person in one's family who is handicapped, most people are not involved with the handicap at all. Whenever I go round to involve normal, able bodied people in the cause of the handicap, they are ready with cash to give them to me, but are not prepared to involve themselves. And yet, the biggest institutions in Bombay for the handicap have been founded because somebody in that particular family was affected by that particular disease or ailment. That is how the Tata Memorial Center came into being. That is how the Fellowship for the Physically Handicapped came to be founded. That is how the Blood Bank of India came into existence. Why cannot we, normal people, able bodied people, people gifted with everything in life, why can we not involve ourselves with the movement of the handicapped? Well, that is a question only those who do not want to involve themselves can answer.